Hello, everyone. Welcome to another painting stream. Today I will be working on this wonderful lady, Zoraida, the Swamp Hag, so the title Zoraida version. And I will be talking about her as well, how she plays, what are the good things, the challenging things. I have to admit, it's in terms of gameplay, it's probably my favorite master right now. I mean, the most enjoyable. Not that I'm super successful with her, but I do enjoy playing her because she's just fun to play, and I will spend some time talking why she's so much fun to play. I'll do that later on, and great to see some people already joining. I think it's not maybe the most optimal time for a stream because I believe that the World Cup, the football or soccer World Cup semifinal is happening right now. So my heart goes to Croatia, of course, because I have many good friends there. So hope they manage to turn things around and get to the final. But again, I'm not that really invested in football, so that's not something that I follow that closely. Anyways, today we have the Swamp Hack version. I will tell a little bit about the story. I will be using for reference the artwork which I have on my screen, so I'll be looking at it every now and then. Essentially, what we have here is a lot of browns, some shades of yellow, some fire effect going uh, on her. What is it? It's a kind of weapon that she has, and in the artwork there is like purple mist or steam coming off from the plate that voodoo dolls are holding. There is also a tiny snail, so plenty of detail. And I think I will do some nice shiny purple, which will contrast well with the browns. So essentially muted browns. I've started the base, just laid out some base colors. So a lot of browns, some yellows, and then some focal points will be the face, the purple here, and the fire here. What I see immediately as somewhat challenging is the is this because it's a moth lady. She has plenty of moths flying around her, and it looks pretty in the artwork. One of the moths is here, the other one is there. There are several of them. Now the challenge, the real challenge is that this is some kind of fur or moss, probably some kind of fur, and it's really hard to distinguish which part of the fur are the actual moths and which part is fur. So what I plan to do is what I usually do. I will start with the skin, then I think I will do the clothes, some muted dark browns, and then I will try to pinpoint all those moths and then go with the fur because I don't know if I can come up with something more creative here. What I like about this miniature is that it's super dynamic and plenty of detail. As I mentioned, there are the voodoo dolls. They are moving. They're carrying this plate with something boiling in it. There is another voodoo doll on her back. There are some. Oh, there is another voodoo doll at the back. There is a bracelet on her leg, which was a bit of a pain to put together because it was hard to make it stick. And yeah, and the level of detail, just look at the face. It's impressive. So there we go. First 5 minutes, me getting excited about the miniature that I should start painting, I guess. So what I'll do straight away is make some noise because I base coated her with pure black, over which I sprayed white just to have this kind of zenithal highlight to guide me through the process. I use it as a neat trick to help me deciding where to place highlights, where to keep the areas darker. And I just noticed that part of her left foot is painted over with brown. I don't want it. I want white to work with, and that's better. And now I'll use my standard approach, so Galliman Flash, for this highly generic skin tone. Give it a good shake. On my vortex shaker. And then apply it just directly from the pot. Nothing really fancy about it. What happens here is actually that the dark base coat the black stays darker in the recessed areas, and it becomes more visible on the raised areas, which will automatically help with creating nice depth to the miniature. It will look very dark after the first go with contrast paint, but that will evolve as I continue. And of course, adding it, applying it in slight excess. Don't want too much of it. And I think she's holding a lizard by its tail. Yes, it's a lizard. So I think it opens up a lot of possibilities. After I have the main body painted and the clothes, and I have a general idea of how muted the colors are, I can pinpoint the elements which will contrast with the rest. So for example, the lizard can be pale blue or bright orange, depending on how I feel about painting it. And it's great because I can decide which elements I want to stand out more, and there is just a lot of possibilities. The miniature was pretty good to assemble. Didn't really have much of an issue with it at all. I would say only the ornament, the bracelet on the leg, that was a bit tricky to keep it on her lower leg in the right position. But it's a super dynamic miniature, and it's just there's just so much going here that it's just fun to work around that. And I actually received this miniature for free from a fellow gamer from Polish community. So big shout out to you, Maciek, if you're watching. Thank you for that. So a guy actually bought the Fates Entwined box for the first part, and he really didn't need Zoraida. So I asked him if he would be willing to sell her, and he said, "Well, just take her. I'm not gonna need her." So I said, "Well, how can I repay you? Maybe I can buy you lunch or something." So I said, "Let's go to the store before the tournament." And he just said, "Well, buy a big bar of chocolate and let's share it with others." So that's the kind of community we have around, and it's amazing to see such situations when they happen. Because this Malifaux Burns Hey, McBlood. Hello, hello. Good day to you. Now I think I will do the base color of the clothes. So I'll use some dark brown, dark gray brown. So I will mix some colors. I think I will mix dark gray with some touch of brown. So that will be the mix. How are you doing? I just saw your artwork with another scene from Malifa. Very, very nicely portrayed. Really enjoyed seeing it on your Instagram. And I think that the new format that you're using, where you have it partly animated, and you can see and appreciate the creative process that goes through. It's amazing, really amazing. Keep it up. I enjoy seeing those, and I'm sure that so does the community. And I'm doing fine. I'm doing really okay. I mean, been feeling a bit under the weather over the weekend, but got some proper rest and feeling much better now. It's about it's this time of year where you want to finish things off at work, not leave them for the next year, and it's been pretty intense, especially that I'm starting my winter vacation this Friday. So Thursday is my last working day. I'm just preparing a proper mix until I like it, which means that my workload is quite accumulated over the 4 days of the week. But that's just, yeah, I did get proper rest, just proper shut eye. That's all I needed. That was all I needed. And that made me feel much better. I think that there is like an apron here and different color there. So I'll go with light brown for now. When I apply contrast paints, I generally try to start with something that is slightly brighter because I can always tone it down with another contrast paint and it will create this nice smooth transition. Whereas the other way around, it's still doable, but requires much more effort. And I want to focus on techniques which are fast and easy. I was actually meant to go for a 2-day tournament over the weekend, but didn't go. Just sometimes your body tells you no, you're going to lie down and relax. And I just listen to my body, and while I feel unhappy about missing the tourney, I feel that I just needed time to catch up on sleep and relax. And well, at the end of the day, that was the right call. There will be other tournaments. It was a 2-day Christmas charity tournament. There were, I think, 12, 13 people. Maybe 2 people, including me, dropped, so the turnout was pretty good. But I'm sure that there will be some tournaments, maybe even in January already. So now I'm just going around making sure I cover all the surfaces. You don't want base coat showing through. And I'm just isolating the apron. I think it's an apron. I'll make sure it gets proper weathering later on because it's a swamp hag. Swamp hag who is angry. At least in the fluff, that's what happened. That she got really upset that essentially she is like this gray eminence, pulling the strings, not getting involved directly. And at some point, she just decides that, well, that's not really helping. It's not getting me where I want to be. I'm just rolling up my sleeves and getting my hands dirty and moving into the thick of things. And that's the that's more of a fighting, less of manipulative Zoraida. And I will be telling a bit more about how she plays because I've been enjoying putting her on the table. And I think the general consensus is that she is not as powerful as the first version, but very, very enjoyable to play. That's how I feel about her too. Because what happens with the first version of Zoraida is that everything there revolves around obey. I mean, this is the most amazing action that she has with a very high stat of 7. Very, very decent range. I mean, amazing range because she can essentially cast it through her models. So she can reach more than 20 inches and she can cause chaos. So if your opponent is not prepared for that, if their crew isn't structured properly, then they will have bad time. And of course, she also has the first version. She has hacks, so it's a solid attack action. But most of the time, you just look to effectively use the obey with enthrall, I believe, trigger, meaning that the chosen model takes 2 actions. So it's super effective because, for example, in turn 1 early on, you can just use it to on opponent's beater to just kill one of the critical support healer buffer models. Yeah, that's the mood. Yeah, screw it. Going back to the hat. That's how it was for her. And again, now I'm using gray, not black, even though her hair is like this dirty gray, filthy gray. I will start with pure gray and then somehow modify it to just get where I want to be. So already there is some nice progress here. That's the amazing thing about contrast, express, speed paints, you name it. They just allow you to get really pleasant effects quickly. Now I think I may actually do the voodoo dolls. Or maybe I will do the boot because it's a boot. It's a shoe that she's wearing. Looks like it has seen better days. So I'll apply just some yellow, mix it with brown so that it will be dirty yellow. Hey, defective dice. Great seeing you. And since we have you in the stream, I want to give a big, big shout out to you. Really wonderful stuff you're creating. And your last 3 videos, actually, 2 of them I will refer to, but they appear quite regularly. So the ones that I want to bring the audience attention to is first of all the one about Zoraida. Oh yeah, Gwyneth of the Explorers Johnson. Could be. We don't really know who Gwyneth is. So I want to give a shout out to Defective Dice for amazing content, especially the recent ones. There is one very long one about Zoraida. Give it a listen. It's well worth it because her fluff, the backstory, it's complex, it's heartbreaking, it's fun, it's sad. You have everything in it, and you should just click now and give it a listen. Yeah, glad you made it this time. Seems like you're not fan of football if you're here, or soccer, because there is a semi-final, I believe, at this point going on. But good to see people joining despite that. So the other one that I want to also draw people's attention to is the most recent one, which is an excellent overview of story so far. I mean, it focuses on the previous book. It focuses on, yeah, Malifaux Burns lore recap. Great, quick video, 10 minutes. You get up to speed with what the main characters are up to. And it's something that you should read before, you should watch before you read Malifaux, Madness of Malifaux, the new expansion, which has just come out, the new book that has just come out. Now I think it's time for the moths. I'll try to find them. That will be fun. So the name of the game is Finding the Moth. I mean, those are just giving credit where credit is due, because man, those are amazing, amazing videos. And I typically watch them in the background when I paint. Perfect material for working with Malifaux. Thank you. At this point, you've covered most of the masters or all of them. I think maybe not the Nexus, because there isn't just that much lore about Nexus. Correct me if I'm wrong. But glad that there will be new content coming up soon. I hope. I hope you already got the Madness of Malifaux and will be doing some kind of overview of the lore there, because it's very interesting what will happen there. Especially with the new masters and their connection to tyrants. Of course, I'm most of all, I'm interested in Castora. And you're probably the first to really pinpoint that yes, this is likely that it was your working theory that the new Neverborn Master will be Castora, and you nailed it. So well done. So those moves are easy. Oh, of course, no spoilers. We cannot give them. No, I haven't. I haven't even ordered the book because it takes ages for it to ship from the US to Poland. So I think I'll just wait until it is available in brick and mortar stores somewhere in Europe within the European Union, so that I can order it without additional payments, and then I'm going to enjoy it. Although it would be lovely to read it uh, over the Christmas break, but well, not gonna happen. Maybe I will read it over the Easter break with the mm, current pace of things. Nexus and Anya. Okay, yeah, there isn't much. You can do a combined video, and, and it probably won't last more than a couple minutes. And now the fun part, because what I want to do now is to find all the moths and the fur that she's wearing, and I'm have to admit it's a challenging task. Okay, those are two moths, yes, and I'm using very light blue for the moths because first of all I want them to contrast with the rest, and second of all it will be easy for me, fairly easy to fix something that turns out not to be a moth and then fix it. Yeah, I hope so. I actually read the previous book and the Explorer's book in PDF version. Just read it from my phone. Loved it. So yeah, that would also be great if it was released for the Christmas break. Then I could catch up on the new lore and be up to speed with what's happening. And also, I hope that the app gets updated soon, because then, people start publishing pictures of new cards anyway. And at some point, there isn't just much point in not updating the app. So I hope it happens sooner than later. There are quite a few moths here. There is one more here. This is tricky. Essentially, I'm just pointing my brush with automatic blue, so very light blue, on the area and hoping I I get I get a moth, not a fur, not a piece of fur. Okay, there is this one. Those are like tiny, tiny butterflies. And actually, even if I make some mistakes, it won't be that impactful. Because what I will do later, I will just highlight them with pure white once I have dark brown around them. Because her main shtick in the game is that she can use the Moth Witch ability, which is an absolutely amazing ability. Because what happens? She discards a card or two, and up to two other Swamp Fiends, regardless of where they are on the board, so they can be as far or as close to her as possible. They do the same general action, not a charge, not attack action. They can do focus. I mean, they can do the concentrate action, which is great because you can essentially buff your beaters before they head out to hunt scheme runners or other models. Or you can use it to interact. You can have your Silurid way up the board and use the action to make them drop some scheme markers or remove some. Well, let's see how many more moths I can pick out. There is another one. There is another one here. Probably here as well. Yes, that's a moth. Maybe here too. Oh yeah, they for some reason whenever my opponents see them on the table, they are not happy because they are super annoying to hunt down. You really need to commit. I mean, if you have a strong beater with focus on them, then you stand a good chance of removing them in one go. But if you don't, they just run away. Oh, and then there is the back. And I don't know if you can see it, but it's a very nicely textured part of the miniature. But it's at the same time really, really tough to find those moths. I'll do my best. Yeah, they are slippery. But I mean, I've been using Zoraida, especially Zoraida 2 for carve the path strategy because she can kick those cans really, really far early on, and then the opponent has to commit resources, so their models, to kicking them back. And I think that's still the most powerful thing that she does, the most impactful, is that when she removes a marker, so I typically use Will o' the Wisp to produce two scheme markers turn one that Zoraida can eat. And what happens is when she does it, she can decide the activation order, so she can name the next model that activates. And if she activates early turn, because she doesn't have to activate late turn, because she just controls things from the back. So she can, let's say, decide that Victorious or Lady Justice or a bitter that you want to somehow push forward before they activate, she can force them to activate, and their activation is essentially wasted at this point because you don't want them up to 4, so they don't do anything. And she also summons, she can summon effigies. Some of them are more useful, some less. I find that generally mannequins are the go-to summon because they are amazing. They have Take the Hit, which can save a life. And Shadow Effigy is quite good for scheming. And also Carrion Effigy is great for killing with its no heal aura. And one Arcane Effigy can be good situationally for condition removal. And those are, I believe, the only ones. I mean, there is an argument that Intrepid Effigy could be a good one, but I just never really saw the merit of summoning it. There always seemed to be something that would be a better choice in a given moment. So now the fur. The furry part, I think if I want these moths to really stand out, and I still see 2 or 3 more. If I really want them to stand out, then I need to do something very dark around them. Which will have to be some kind of dark brown. And for that, I will, I think, go with maybe snakebite leather, or maybe actually, why don't I go with Gorgranta fur? Give it a bit of shake. And paint it. Because the stuff that she's holding, I will paint it like rotten green, because I want some green in it. And I'm using a small brush and carefully working my way around that blue moths. They are currently blue. I will highlight them to pure white as I continue. But before that happens, I just want the area around them much darker. So for now, I'm just using a small brush, using just the tip to work around those moths. And again, talking about the gameplay, what is enjoyable for me personally from the aesthetic point of view, because I really like the look of the Swamp Fiends. I mean, I like the aesthetics. And the nice thing about using Zoraida 2 is that you get to use predominantly Swamp Fiends. It just makes sense to stay in the keyword. So you will have the Kurgan, you will have the First Mate. McTavish makes a lot of sense because before using Zoraida 2, I think I maybe put him on the table once. But now with Witch's Brew, so her 0 action to raise all the stats of a given model by 1, McTavish all of a sudden shoots at 6, has a melee of 7, and can already have focus before he's thrown out into the action. So he can Potentially even take down a scheme runner or even an enforcer if you're lucky. And there are plenty of amazing enforcers from Malifaux Burns. My rule of thumb is that when I see a model from Malifaux Burns on the table, I just try to take it down because I expect it to be something that will make my life as an opposing player a misery. I think it works out quite well. This dark, saturated brown contrasts quite nicely with the pale blue that I chose for the base coat of the moths. So Zoraida is very much a tragic hero, and you don't really appreciate it until you've read or listened to her fluff. That's why I recommend so much checking out Effective Dice's video on her. And also, the figure of Zoraida is Word's take on this folk tale of Baba Yaga, the swamp witch, the swamp hag. So, someone who lives far away from society is involved in some kind of dark magic, voodoo magic. Which is not a new thing, but just have to admit that I like the way that Word approached it from a creative standpoint. Is that just she is a really well-rounded character. Bridgeside broadcasts for the stories. Yeah, the Bridgeside broadcasts are excellent too. There are dozens of the episodes right now, and you just have all the stories from all the books, all the chronicles. So we're Word magazines that were released in the past, and you just get everything there. And some of those stories are very memorable. And again, going around those moths. So the fur part will be base coated very shortly, and then I will give you guys a kind of overview of where I'm at with progress, because I think that progress is fairly decent for first 40 minutes. Yeah, looks okay. Yeah, there she is. And mind you, this is just the base coat essentially. No highlights there. Just the base colors. Master of Fate, yeah. And I think she already looks really nice. Even before I get to the nitty-gritty stuff with the details. Really, really lovely miniature. Now the staff. The staff I will just start with Blackbird Flesh. Sorry for the noise in advance. And I will base coat it with light green. And actually, while I have the light green, I will use it to add some variety to the brown. Just add a few spots here and there so that it looks like it's very, very old fur. And now the stuff. I can already put some green here. Yeah. Just the base color, which will get darker as I move along. And also, that the thing that I like about Zoraida in terms of lore is that it's really hard to tell what what she is, because she seems, in some stories she seems like this crazy old lady who just sits somewhere in the swamp and does weird stuff. In others, she's highly elaborate, seems to be on track perfectly and fully in control of her actions. One thing that really must be driving her mad is that she doesn't know who Lucius is. I mean, what Lucius is, because who he is, we know that he's he's a manipulator, thirsty for power, who enjoys pulling a lot of strings. But it's amazing that she doesn't know. She would love to know, but she doesn't. Must be keeping her awake at night. And I will already mix green with some brown to create this dirty looking green, and mix it into the recessed areas to add some depth. And I have to admit that when I paint during the streams, I'm way more motivated than when I normally paint, because typically when I paint, I would take a break, read something, watch something, make myself a cup of tea or coffee, depending on the time of day, and just take it easy. And here it's just I I would say that I make much more progress over a 3 hour painting stream, than typically what I would do over 2 to 3 separate evenings during which I paint. So it's kind of tunnel vision, right? I know that I'm here to paint, and I typically I try to paint one miniature per stream. Sometimes it's not possible when the miniature is very complex. Most of the time, I'm able to do that. Yeah, that would make her super angry. But I think also that the relationship between Zoraida and Titania is a bit awkward, because they both support Neverborn, and Neverborn are somehow divided. I mean, I would say fractured. So it's not a comfortable position to be in, for sure. To be one part. The, well, and I mean, Titania and Euripides seem to be forming a, a faction within faction, which is still better than resurrectionists who don't have any main principle and are just happy finding one another as they go. And also there is a part which looks like wood, so I will also base coat it with light brown tweak it with some darker brown in the recessed area. I mean, dark green in recessed areas. And I've been actually playing quite a bit of Malifaux Burns Neverborn Masters. I mean, I played Euripides, Zoraida, and Titania, and enjoyed them a lot. So I haven't really had much success with it. Let's hope we can get back. Okay, seems that we are back. Yay. Okay, since it seems we're back. So I hope things work well, and I hope you can hear me. I don't know what happened really because I got kicked out of Twitch for some reason, even though my internet connection wasn't lost. So, well, weird stuff. Now, as for the dolls, I will go with something very, very light. I'll go with Palette Bond from the Speed Paint range. And I'll just apply it on their tiny bodies. Maybe this brush will be better. There are 4 of them in total. And they will be, for now, very bright, very light shade. It's a color that I typically use for painting bonds, but it can also work for light material. So I think that will go well with the dolls. They have buttons for eyes, which will be another fun element to repeat with brighter color. I think I can go with 2 layers of this color here, just to make sure I have solid coverage. And there's also one with a needle in its head on her back. And thank you, Playword. Thank you, wonderful hobby assistant, for fighting obliteration. It's not the first time you fought for me, and you made it. Always highly appreciate your support. I think people don't know what kind of things you see there when you do it. What kind of visions and encounters. This one looks kind of cute. It's got its mouth sewn, which is something that I really haven't noticed until now. Super cute. Ah, it's always good to know that you have you have my back. Once it's Waldo, another time it's obliteration, but you don't care. You just roll up your sleeve and kick their whatever it is that is materialized. There are also some tiny bones here. So there's just plenty of details here and there that I'm just base coating now, so it doesn't look pretty. But once I get to fine tuning it, it looks like garlic. Yeah, I think it's garlic. Safe to say it's garlic. Or she just does it as, another day at the job, another day at the office. That's the approach, I think. Now, as for garlic, what I will do is I will use pink, because there is this type of garlic which is pinkish, right? Not sure if maybe it's the Chinese one. At least not a big fan of garlic, but so I hardly ever buy it. But I think that, oh, there goes the brush. And there goes the brush back. Yeah, even obliteration doesn't want to mess with Waldo. So what I'll do now is I will take all those tiny garlic heads. And as you can see, the general approach is that I try to focus on smaller objects first because I want them clearly visible, and then it's just easier to work on larger surfaces around them. And I think that pink was a very good choice because it just offers nice balance, counterbalance to another color which at first glance seems out of place, which is this pale blue. But as I said, it's just the beginning. All of these colors will be tweaked, highlighted, made darker in the recesses. So it's just the beginning. Although I have to admit that for just less than an hour of painting, it's already pretty decent progress. Now for the lizard maybe, or the pots that she has. I just need to look at the artwork again. Okay, this is like pottery, so I will use orange. There goes the vortex shaker. And I will use this orange on all the pottery elements. Maybe I'll start with a smaller brush, smaller size brush, just to go in between the garlic heads. Paint this piece. And once again, this is just the base color. It will be modified, but it already sets the tone for highlights and shades that will follow. This is also, I believe, pottery here. Some containers made of what could be clay. Although I don't know if I would want to know what are those made of, because in some of the stories Zoraida is this vicious killer. She just enjoys causing hurt, and that makes me hesitant to really learn too much about the details of what kind of ingredients are used to make things that she uses on daily basis. So after I've base coated all those elements, I will give it all an overbrush of light shade, and then I will go into fine-tuning mode. So who knows, maybe I will even start something else tonight. Depends on, I'm not going to rush it. Depends on how fast I go with the rest. Oh yeah, he would defeat them with puns. He would just laugh in their face and be a general nuisance. Now for the contents of the cauldron, or it's not a cauldron, it's just a plate with some boiling stuff in it. Oh, there is this tiny snail in it. So another nice detail. Now, how do I tackle it? So I have the non-metallic stuff. Oh right, there is another moth on her hair. My bad. I missed out on that. Because there are some moths on her head apparently, so I need to repick them with white. There's one for sure here. And I think there is one here as well. Yeah, they will be blue in a second. And then we have those candles which are upside down and the fire is going up, so there will have to be some object source lighting down there as well. Now for the inside of the plate, I will first of all use light blue for those two additional moths that I just spotted. And then I will just go with pure white, because if I want to do something that will be like pinkish and glowy, I need a solid base coat of white. Might seem counterintuitive, but it will all make sense later on. So just going with pure white. Doesn't really matter which white you use, which brand, as long as it's white. I enjoy using that white from Vallejo because it's just white and it's got very good coverage, so the opacity is perfect. I can just go with one layer and it's already white, which is not something I've experienced with other types of white that I worked with. So now it's super bright, which is okay. I will also keep the lizard a bit brighter. The lizard even has a tongue. So wow, there is a lot of detail here. But I'm not overwhelmed. I'm just happy that there is plenty of detail to work with. I will also, while I have white on my palette, before it dries, I will make sure that the wax from the candles is visible, that it's clearly visible. So again, base coating with white, because with fire I will also go from pure white through yellow to orange and red. And I think I can also use pure white because there are her braids are there's some like some thread here to be highlighted. And I want it to be also distinctly visible. Right, again here as well, and here. I'll just adjust the position of my desk. And have a quick look at the artwork. Just want to make sure I go roughly with what I see in the artwork. Yeah, that's pretty close. Now the boiling thingy, I'll go with quartz magenta. And I will mix it with white to have this super vibrant pinkish, but bright pinkish color. It will get darker later on. Maybe I can already get some of the glaze in it, and then the bubbles will be darker. Okay, that already is a decent focal point. Now the candles. The candles, I think they will be gray, maybe? No, the hair is already gray. So I'll just make them, let's see what else I can do. Maybe yellow? Yellow seems like a, no, we already have yellow. And the snail has become purple now, which is no good. I want the snail in a different color. But what I'll do now is I'll just go with black. That's what I will do. So we're into the second hour of the stream, and let's just pause for a second with what I've painted so far. I think it's a already decent looking model, even at this early stage. I think I will need some red as well, just for extra variety. But for now, I'll go with elements which I want to be black. So definitely this needle in the head should be black. I mean, it will be silver, but before it becomes silver, it will be black. All right. Now the bracelet, the ornament on her leg, I think this thing around her ankle is also metallic. I'll just carefully go around it, around the leg, maybe switch to slightly smaller brush. Just want to make sure that it's evenly covered with black from all sides, because you can't have proper silver if white is showing through on the base coat. So the overall the color scheme is very, I would say, organic. There's one detail that I haven't really decided on yet, which is this tiny snail. And that snail will be maybe blue. I mean, I'm very comfortable with being in this indecisive at this point because I can just focus on painting the elements around it, establishing some order with them, and then depending on what I see, I can make the decision of how the snail should go with them or how the snail should stand in contrast to them, which is a comfortable situation to be in, really. Now, the, just making sure that I cover it all the way. Yeah, then the lizard, and the lizard cannot be purple because the contents of the bowl are going to be purple. So I'll need to maybe dark blue. I think dark blue makes sense. I'll go with dark blue. I also need to use some green here on this element, which I forgot to do earlier. And now let me get dark blue. Favorite Zoraida model? Well, I'm not sure if maybe this will be my favorite Zoraida model, because I really like her. But my favorite is the first ever model, the one that's poking a doll with a needle and making a nasty face. I have her as a kind of mini diorama because I have her standing on some planks, submerged in the dirty bayou water, and that's a model which is full of character. I painted all the models, not all. I didn't paint the alternative metal Zoraida, which is hunched next to a cauldron, because that one I'm not sure if I like that one too much. I painted the new plastic one as well. I mean the M3 plastic one, because there are two. There is the original, I mean the one from the second edition and the one from the third edition. But I would say that my favorite would be either this one that I'm working on currently, or the very first one, which is probably next to impossible to buy these days. The first one is the one that has seen the most probably play out of all my miniatures, because I played her even in early in the second edition. I mean, it looks like a lizard now. Actually, when it was base coated, I thought that it's like a mandrake root that she's putting into the contents of the bowl, but now I see clearly that it is a lizard. So its tank will have to be something different. How about you? Do you have a favorite Zoraida model? Which one would that be, if any? I also like the Juju model, especially the new one, although I don't use it much. I just find that its defense is so low that it dies to a stiff breeze, even with its demise. Okay, where do I go from here? I think I go to the snail. Or the candles. Candles might be a good idea. And I will probably use. All right, I know which color I will use for them. I will go with Glyph Charger Gray, which is again one of my favorite contrasts. It is. It's got a lot of character. I have to agree. I'll have to wait until it's finished, but very well could be my favorite. I may even use her in games as the Raider one. I mean, I don't think anyone would mind as long as I have both versions, whichever I put on the table, since they both have the same size of base. It doesn't really matter too much. So this is this slightly bluish gray that I've just applied. And now the snail, I would need to repick it a little bit because it's got some purple on it. And I'm just looking where did I place my color? Doesn't really matter. I will use a different one. I'll just use. Okay, there it is. That's what I was looking for. For Zoraida iconic, think there is also this avatar, which is this young lady. So I think this is an iconic scene, and they're as iconic as it gets for Zoraida. So maybe something there like that. Maybe this pinup style model of Bayou Witch could be fun, could be interesting, and could definitely generate a lot of interest, even if you're not into Malifaux, because that would be a model that could draw a lot of attention, like this Lady Justice alter alternative iconic model, which is essentially a like a pinup style of steampunk wizard. I'll need to make sure this snail is still visible even after all the contents of the bowl are complete. Now I'll just rebase code the buttons. So that could be it, or well, I think that having her as a child would be interesting, although from the standpoint of story and lore, it could be interesting, but I'm not sure if a scrawny kid would make for an interesting alternative or iconic model. Or it could be just like Zoraida riding a juju, like sitting on the juju, like similarly to what we have in this nightmare version of Dreamer, when Dreamer is sitting on Chompy's shoulder. So they could do something like that with Zoraida sitting on bad juju, and then this bad juju could be used for, or just Zoraida sitting in her swamp home. So witch hut made, which would have like this hand leg, and just sitting in it. That could be an iconic model. Or Zoraida playing cards with someone major. Zoraida playing cards with Lucius. That would be a fun, iconic model featuring two well established characters. Potentially with different head options for Lucius, one Neverborn and one Mask. So I'm just letting my imagination go wild here. Late G. And what would you see in What If Zoraida? How would you envision her in her What If version? Who would she be, or what would she be? I'll be curious to know. Okay, I need a little bit more work on the snail because some part of it wasn't base coated properly here. I think the snail could be dark green because there isn't really much dark green in here so far. And we are approaching the halftime of the stream. Yeah, this is a great miniature. So I think that those will be like a burlap sack, that they will be very bright. That's what I will do with them. I don't really plan everything ahead. I'm more of a go with the flow person when it comes to painting. The Nephilim parts, maybe set of wings, some claws, but with Zoraida face and few voodoo dolls, because of course, yeah, that could work. I mean, I see nothing wrong with it. That could be fun. For sure, that could be interesting. I would buy I would buy an iconic model like that. I think that there are still some elements which I want brighter, like the rope around her waist, which may be just white, dirty white, or dirty yellow, depending on how the rest shapes out. I mean, that's one of the things that I've always appreciated about Word is that they created this universe where nothing is really out of place. So you cannot go and say that this miniature doesn't make sense. This character is too out of place because you have a mix of everything there. And yet, with all the wealth of tropes and inspirations that they have, they still manage to come up with something that is completely different. And that even goes with the new masters, right? That the Cavalier keyword is something that looks like World War I inspired models. Then the Clumpets, the Clumpetes, however you pronounce it, the new Bayou masters. There's also something new there. The Snail Cavalry. I mean, it makes sense, right? It's Bayou, so those are the creatures that would inhabit the Bayou, but and then calling them Cervantes. It just never ceases to amaze me how creative word design team is. Okay, there is some like thread here as well. Just making sure I base coat everything. I was thinking about using oil paints on this one, but I'm hesitant. I think I will use oil paints on Perdita, which will be the next model for my next stream. Okay, so that is it. That's already looking pretty good. Now, what else? Now the snail. So the snail, I think dark green. Dark green. So maybe I'll use warp lighting. It is an amazing model, and in terms of what it brings to the game, it's a tanky model that can take the hit, and it's something that the Bayou didn't have. And it just brings a piece of tech that just wasn't there for the faction. And I think that this model will find its way in many crews. Not necessarily the keyword, but could be potentially hired out of keyword. Yeah, thank you for dropping in and hanging out, and see you next time, and keep on producing the amazing content that you do. Take care, mate. Now the shell of the snail. Think think something, maybe maybe turquoise. Why not? I have turquoise ink, so that's not a contrast paint. It's something that will make immediate impact. But then it will go well with both the blue parts and the green parts, because turquoise is this nice mix of the two colors. It's ink, so it doesn't flow the same way that contrast paints do. So I need to be mindful of that. Yeah, so all the elements are now base coated. Took me half of the stream to get to this point, where we have everything base coated. Although I have to admit I did start with painted base. So I was a bit cheating there. I think I need more green and more red, so more. But either way, I'm already quite happy about what I see. So now the overbrush time. That's the technique I use at this stage. So that once I have all the core colors applied, I can, well, I will just wait for the snail to dry, and I will just arrange some of the colors back to their proper places, because otherwise they clutter my workspace too much. And I will go with bone white color, which is perfect for it. It's the one. Again, game color. And what I will do now is I will do an overbrush. So similar to dry brush, it's pretty much a dry brush, but not extremely dry. I want to make sure that I just go lightly over the whole miniature with an overbrush, just to repeat all the details, which I can then proceed to highlight or keep darker. It's a very convenient option because bone white is a color that mixes pretty well with most of the colors that are here already. So all the browns, greens, oranges, they will just be easily highlighted with it. That's the doll. That's the clove. My cat is snoring behind me. He had a rough day, slept most of it, and then woke up when it was dark, took a nap, woke up, it was dark again, so feeling probably a bit confused, and decided to continue napping. Isn't that life, right? That's just amazing. So now an overbrush on the staff as well. And then I will just fine tune everything, and the fine tuning part will probably last until the end of the stream, which is fine because I'm in no rush whatsoever. I'll also give some overbrush to the lizard, because the lizard will need some love as well. All right, almost ready to proceed. cleaning the brush, having another look at the artwork. Yeah, looks like I can now move into my favorite part. I mean, my favorite part. I don't really have, strictly speaking, favorite part. I enjoy the whole process. So now I will go with the light colors first, and maybe I'll do the skin first. So for that I will mix purple and skin tone. Just making sure I mix it properly. So I'll go with Rikland's Flash Shade Carroburg Crimson. Two nice colors. Put them both on the palette. And then mix them. Although this one got clogged a little bit, but that's not a problem. I have paper clips to fix that. So if it ever happens that your paint doesn't flow, don't. The worst thing you can do in this situation, if you have a paint that you can see it's liquidy inside but doesn't go out, please don't ever squeeze it, because if you squeeze it, it will eventually just explode and flood your workplace, which is not a good thing. Just take a paper clip. As you can see, even if I'm already, when I'm taking it out, I can see that it did the job. I can apply it on the palette. Now I will mix it with water and start applying it as wash. And the difference, I've said it many times, but I will just, maybe I just want to sound like a broken record. Maybe that's what I do, but I will do it anyway, because the difference between the glaze and the wash is that with glazes now I will use a thinned down color, something that will not be immediately impactful, but I will put a layer or two or three and just lightly affect the color. So no dramatic impact. I will also, since she's this ancient lady, I will maybe even add a very light touch of green to the glaze. So it's not highly impactful. It's like filtering. You can think of it as when you have on your phone, you have the option to filter it, to filter your pictures and add different color enhancements. That's essentially what's happening now. Oh, hey there, Sibel. Thanks for chiming in. Nice to see you. Hope you're doing well, and thanks for encouraging words. And yes, I agree. It is an incredible miniature. I will also do a little bit of green on the skin. Are you snowed in? We have plenty of snow here. Plenty. I mean, haven't seen so much snow in years, really. Which makes driving in the morning kind of nightmare. But at least it looks pretty. I will also go with light green over her stuff. Then I will just tweak it slightly with, and I'm using contrast here, but this one is not that impactful. It's a very light contrast paint. So I can also use it maybe mixed with light brown on the clothes. And for light brown, I will use soft tone from Army Painter. Maybe a little bit of brown. Maybe a little bit more. I wanted more brown than green, and it's so far it was too green. Now it's the right amount of brown, I think. And I can enhance the colors of the clothes. So giving it a brownish, greenish filter now. And for fine tuning the face details, I will just go with pure bone white. And since I have the glaze on the palette, I'll just mix it in with the glaze a little bit so that it's more of an off-white than it was initially. So it's slightly pinkish. And then I will just make sure I pick the raised details. And then I will paint the eyes. Well, clearly one thing is obvious, that she's toothless in this version. There are no teeth visible. I don't want to highlight the whole surface, just focusing on the adding very, very light highlight on some of the raised areas. And how is everyone doing in terms of Christmas preparation, or actually celebrate the season? It's an artificial one, so I keep it in the basement. I just take it out once a year and I let the kids decorate it. And I think that they did a really, really good job this year, because typically it was creative chaos, more chaos than creative, to be honest. This year it looks like there is some kind of semblance of structure. So they did a really splendid job. I don't really celebrate personally Christmas that much, but I do enjoy meeting the family, and some part of family I meet only during the Christmas period. But most of all, I just enjoy that things tend to slow down around this time of year, because things are closed. Although the prep for Christmas with this high pace is no fun. So maybe not the preparation, but part of the celebration is at least enjoyable. Just let some of the purple ink flow so that her gums are visible. Since there are no teeth, at least I can make sure that the gums are visible there. And she looks like she means business. She looks mean. Maybe a little brighter on the skin part. So very, very light highlight. But it's something, essentially, it's like making tiny, tiny dots. Just to add this, make it a bit more eye-catching. Because otherwise, when it's super smooth, at first glance, it might seem like there isn't much of highlight in it. But then those tiny dot-like highlights will do the trick. I hope I'm not disconnected again, because it seems like the Twitch is not responding. Guess we'll find out in a second. I'll just refresh the Twitch and see if things are going on as they should. I think they are. But just to be on the safe side, yeah, they are working. It's just that for some reason it my own stream paused for me. So doing those super bright edge highlights. And I will call the skin ready about now. Base for Iconic Sonia. That's a lovely, lovely miniature. I have very fond memories of painting it over one of the previous streams here. Now the eye. I will paint my standard red eye. So first of all, I will start with pure red, painting it over the whole eye socket, and not feeling bad about it, because it will be highlighted very shortly. Then the other eye socket, pure red, then orange, then yellow, then white, and then red glaze. So now orange. For orange, I will just mix yellow with red, which will be this toned down orange, which will work well because it's all about fairly smooth transition here now. There we go, that's one eye, and the other eye. And now for the yellow. Hello, yellow. Pure, vivid yellow. And then I will just put some white, wait for it to dry, and apply a glaze of red. And you really need to wait for it to dry, because otherwise if you apply glaze when the paints are not fully dry, you will just end up removing them. Fairy ring coming out of a dilapidated rotted wood. Ooh, seems like fun. There's so much potential there, but it's a massive piece, so it sounds like there is plenty of work ahead of you, given the size of the miniature, because it's a big one. Now for the eyes, just a very tiny dot of white. Maybe that wasn't perfect. I will just remove it. Get back to it. That's the advantage of working with acrylic paints. Just some water, even saliva. You can clear the area, because what I want is a tiny dot. And instead of making a tiny dot, I cover the whole surface. This one is better. And this one, let's make another attempt. Okay, that's better. So while I wait for it to dry, just put back the red and yellow and do the, maybe what I will do is I will do some of the red on the stuff. So red and maybe brown. I'll also go with a bit of soft tone to kind of blend it better with the other elements. So soft tone is this light, nice brown shade, which works super well for incorporating it into the general color scheme I have. Not going with it over the whole miniature, rather some selective parts of it. The same on the clothes again. Just making sure that the recessed areas are a bit darker and the raised ones remain brighter. And now a little bit of red. I think red will work nicely here. Just to contrast with those light blue moths, which will be white very shortly. So not rushing it, just making sure that above anything, I just enjoy the process. Don't want to pace myself too much. Just staying on track and keeping at it. But I actually think that I will do a very light glaze of red on those candles, just to give them this extra punch of color. And I think the eyes are ready for wash now. So again, applying way too much than needed. Waiting for like half a minute for the red to settle in, and then wiping the excess of the on the tissue and using the same brush to essentially absorb the excessive amount. And that way there is this glow-like effect, which I want. Yeah, that's face down. And while I have light brown, I can also add some shade to those tiny threads here. And here. All right. Now for the snail shell, I will use very light highlight of turquoise mixed with some white. Then mix more white in. See, I like to have the colors handy, that way it's easy to transition while highlighting. So that's the shell almost done. And a bit more green on the body of the snail. There's so much detail here that right now, it's just a matter of making sure I don't really miss out on any of that, because it's a lot. It's a lot, and I'm not in a hurry. Now the blue. All right. For the lizard, I will thin it down slightly, just with water. You can thin down contrast paints with water. Maybe for larger surfaces, you may want to buy a special medium for thinning them down, but for such small elements, water will work just fine. So there is the blue lizard about to be become part of the of a strange concoction that she's brewing in there. And we are approaching the final hour, which is good. Feel like we're on track to finish this model. before the end of the stream. And now I will maybe work on the dolls, or maybe, yeah, a few things that I can do. But I'll start with some yellow. And again, you see the same approach, working on brighter colors before I switch to darker ones. So I'm just using Zealot Yellow from Speed Paint to work on that rope that she uses as a belt. And I will also boost a bit the wooden part on the base, just to make them more vibrant. And while working on the base, I might as well boost the look on the of the wood on the base. So again, soft tone. That way, using soft tone, I referred to it earlier on, I just ensure that things just stay coherent, that the overall composition is maintained. Because brown is I would say that the brown is the main color here, the most interesting color. All right, now maybe the pottery. So for the pottery, I will use intensity ink first. Phoenix orange. Because this is, it's called intensity ink for a good reason, because it just intensifies the appearance of surface on which you apply it. So I do it on not all of it, but the protruding part, and maybe as well here. I think that this one needs to be black lined a little bit. That's better. Yeah, so let's pause for a second just to stop and showcase where I got. Now I think I will go for the candles. And again, light addition of bone white. And then the fire part. But the fire part, I will actually do it once everything is dry, because I want to use some slight object source lighting. Not too much, but a little bit of it. And now I will maybe keep the hair darker where I want it to be dark. So I'll go with some more gray. on the hair and just work on those recessed areas, making sure that it stays gray, but the recessed areas are way darker. That will add kind of extra depth to the whole, to the way you perceive the miniature. Like here, you see that there is this bright spot which just feels completely out of place, and when I fill it with black, it just becomes automatically more realistic and just better, looks just better. Okay, final hour, and feeling pretty good about it. Feeling like I will be able to complete it. Now you see this extra punch of reddish glaze worked pretty well. Added to the appearance of partially melted wax. And I think we'll move on to the dolls now. Or maybe I'll do one more thing just to add some extra light to the containers she has. I will just add a light touch of yellow intensity ink. So just grab some of it, apply it on the brush, and just, it's a very light change. It's not really immediately visible, but when you pause for a second, you will see that there's just this slightly brighter spot on top of it. And I can already put some of the yellow in here that will indicate that there is fire coming out of these candles. And I will push it further later on. I want to make it this at a bright spot. All right. Now the dolls. The dolls. For the dolls again, I will go with bone white highlight because I want to make them appear really, really pale. So bright material because they will absorb some of the glow from the pot or from the bowl, whatever that is, and light color will absorb it nicely. Whereas with darker shade, it would be barely visible. So highlighting this tiny, tiny, cute dolls. This one is waiting for its turn, maybe to become an effigy. Because summoning effigies can be fun. So what I like about playing this version of Zoraida is that you can get away with really bad hand because you can draw a number of cards during her activation and essentially have a new hand. And the good thing is that it's not about drawing cards, but it's also about moving your other models into position or removing markers which could be important for the opponent, like pyro markers or piano markers. This can be deceptively good. I played a friendly game against Zip, and of course turn one he landed at the middle of my crew with his boring conversation aura and became a major nuisance, which is what Zip is supposed to do. But I was able to win initiative, turn two, start with Zoraida, hit him, stun him, and he was way less of a nuisance. He was a nuisance that was trying to run away to save its life. Save his life for one more turn, and then Tavish caught up with him and his Gatorade him. Okay, maybe one more highlight on the dolls. Not pure white, but ivory color from AK Interactive. And here it's more about a few thin lines to kind of imitate material that has creases. Then every single eye, every single button that is there to be an eye of each doll will have to be highlighted. I'll use some more vivid colors, maybe pink, maybe red, just something to make it stand out more. So the tiny belly, tiny arm, tiny hand, tiny doll, waiting for its turn to become a voodoo doll. I am definitely putting her on the table next time I play, which will not happen this week because this is my final week before holiday, so I won't be able to carve out any time for Thursday night, which is typically a gaming night in my local meta. Maybe next Thursday before Christmas. Maybe it will be possible. We'll see. Okay, now I think I will take care of the moths. So pure white, and this will be a bit challenging because I need to find them all again and highlight their tiny wings only. So I'll just try to keep it at a stable position where also you can see the progress. And wow, those mauve wings are really, really small. I mean, you can't really tell if those are moths or butterflies because they are so small, but then aren't they the same type of insect? Well, of course, with different behavior patterns and different time of day when they function. I mean, day and night. One of the fun things you can do with Zoraida too is to use her zero action and buff Adze. so that he can, and also make him walk with her off the path action, and he can move up more than 20 inches in turn 1 and be in a strategic position. So now I'm just using white to define all those tiny moths. Redefine them, I should say. Someone who was designing it must have spent ages on preparing this 3D render before the miniature was produced, because cannot imagine how painstakingly slow it must have been to mark out all those tiny wings in the structure of the fur. Okay, there are 2 more moths I just noticed. Yeah, 2 more. There is one, and below it there is another one. Just easy to miss out on them. But now that some of them are blue, at least I can work around them. I haven't yet tried Juju with Zoraida 2. I just have to admit that I got discouraged after I tried Juju a few times, and all it did was soak in some damage for a turn or two before it folded, and not achieving much. Maybe I'm just playing it wrong. Which is a shame, because it's such an amazing miniature. I mean, a swamp monster that carries a boat on its back. How ridiculous can you get with model design? It's a very good example. No limits. You can get very creative. Now, what I will do is I will do just a light dry brush of white. Here's a nice trick, because what will happen now is that this will set me up for success with simple OSL. So what I'll do now is I'll just dry brush area around the candles. So generally the area which would be affected by light from the candles. And I will then use fluorescent yellow paint on that. And I will do the same here, so that the purple will be affecting it more. The same on the snail. Lower part of the braids, bosom. Yep, that's it. Now I think the eyes on the dolls are next in line. So for the eyes, I need to use a few maybe different colors than I used on other elements. So I will maybe use dark green and dark purple. I'll start with dark purple. Maybe on this one. So the buttons that serve as eyes. So these two will be purple. Now for the other one, I want a different color. I'm thinking dark green. So maybe this one on her head, on her back will get dark green button. Slightly watered down to make sure it flows nicely and doesn't obscure the details that are there. Maybe pink. And while I'm working with pink, there is this garlic which I started and I should finish. So what I'll do is, first of all, I will just apply it on these buttons. So here is one eye, here is another eye, and this one is reddish. Maybe this one will also get pink eyes. Why not? They're like brothers, carrying the same bowl or whatever it is that she's boiling her poisonous thing in. Now for the white, for the garlic, I'll just mix some pink with white. Do it on the side, and just place some highlights here. Those are tiny, tiny ones, but those final, literally almost white dots will really sell it off and add it extra depth. I mean, extra depth, extra dimension, however you want to call it. It's going to just make it look better. Now the very light touch of pure white. And the same with those bones here. They need a little bit more punch. Just a light touch of pure white. And the same on those elements here. Now I'll just add a light touch of white, some seemingly small dots, which I will in a second bring back with light touch of orange. And for that, maybe not even, or maybe, no, orange will be fine. Right, that's more like it. And now the stuff inside. Maybe before the stuff inside, I will just go with fluo yellow, because fluo yellow, it's really nicely absorbed by surfaces around it, as you will see in a second. This is just, I mean, this is from Game Color, but I reckon any kind of fluo yellow will get the job done. So what you do is just take a medium-sized brush, dip it in it, and you can just be bold with applying it, because those are the candles. So this will be the area affected by this yellow glow, and I want it clearly visible, like there's some light coming off of it. Even some of it can make it to her hand. Why not? No, looks pretty good. All right, now for the red part, I think I will just apply a little bit of red here as well on the tips of the candles, just to go with the notion that there's actually some fire there. So first off, I will mix it with orange, with yellow. There we go. Those are the tips of the flame on each candle. Now they will get some touch of red. Maybe even darker color. Maybe I can even go with black. Light touch of black. Very light touch of black. And I will use orange for transition in between. So I'm just moving fast and tweaking it on the fly, because this is the part of the process where I can fine tune things. So here there was too much of transition from black and dark red to yellow. So I'm just fixing that with a light wash of orange, and it looks more like a flame now. I'll also add a little bit of orange to the recessed areas and add another layer of fluo yellow. Maybe sometimes when I place paints onto my palette, they absorb some of the previous layer, which is not what I want. Now this is a super bright spot, which nicely contrasts with the brown and dark overall shades that are used on the model. something that I think will work nicely. Maybe I can even make tiny additions of yellow above it. And now time for the metallics. It's as we approach the final 30 minutes. I can see the end from here. So let's just pause for a second. Maybe I can turn the page upside down so she's clearly visible against it. Just not sure about those dolls. Maybe I should. I mean, I like the way they stand out against brown. Maybe I'll give at least one of them a different wash. I'll use maybe I will use black wash. Yeah, I can use black wash. I'll use null oil. Maybe thin it down slightly. Where's my null oil? Here it is. Don't want it to be super heavy, but still darkening things a bit. All right, I think it works because it eases the transition from brown to white on this doll and makes it appear as if it was dirty, which is proper. All right, that's it. So there's one major source of vivid color. The other major source of bright color will be coming from this bowl. But I guess at this point I need to use metallics. And I will do so. So I will grab silver, apply it, and then I will decide, because I can darken it with washes and make it appear copper. I will find out. First of all, one thin layer of silver on this large needle in the head of the voodoo doll on the top here. And then, careful for that, I will just grab a smaller brush. I don't want to mess up previous work. So what I will do is I will just work around it. I will also use some water effect to imitate dirty swamp. And I will do it, maybe I will even manage it before the end of the stream. Because that way I don't have to really worry about the details on the shoe, because it will be treated with some dark green glaze. I mean glaze, it's more of a mixture of water effect with a mix of green colors. And now the lower part, I will just thin down the silver. I don't need it very intensive there. just a base layer. And the same on the other side. This is the moment where it's tempting to just rush, finish things off, make sure that the miniature is completed before the end of the stream, before the night is over, or before your painting window open, before your painting window for painting closes. But I would advise against it. Just stop, put it aside. If you feel like you're beginning to rush it, then it's probably a sign that you should take a break. Because it's a shame if you ruin your work with some rush actions and speed things up too much. All right. Those are the silver bits. Now I will use gray wash, which will be Basilicum gray. It's a good idea to use Basilicum gray because it takes away all the shine. It's very matte, so once you apply it, it immediately becomes less reflective and much darker. Just want to control the flow, make sure that not too much gets outside of the area which was base coated with silver. Now the same here. Super matte. I think this one could also be metal. I'll just treat it as if it was metal. Okay, now time to highlight the silver. Just I will go around the edges. And then I can tweak it and decide if I want it to be silver or copper, depending on how it looks with the overall composition. I can also add a glaze to make it look like old metal. Just carefully around the edge, not going to the inside too much, very lightly working around it. I think the snail got some unwanted black on it. I'll just fix it in a second. No, I think silver works fine. Maybe just on her feet. On her foot there, one ornament will be better if I change it to gold. Just fixing the black spot on the snail shell. And actually the snail, I could use aromatic blue on it. Oopsie. There's my camera under control again. So what I will do now is I will get zealot yellow and use it here. That way it will look as if it was golden some time ago, but it no longer is. I can also grab a few more silver highlights while it's still drying so that it wet blends nicely. Now for the snail, I will apply some aromatic blue. It's one of my favorite contrast colors. Great for smooth transitions, special effects. Very universal paint. "20 minutes to go." That's good timing. Some more of yellow, because this fluo yellow doesn't have very good coverage. So I find that even applying thicker layers on where you want the main glow to remain gets the job done. Now the cauldron or whatever that is, that needs some more work. So I'll use candying. And again, this is a highly vibrant color. So I'll use it lightly on the area around it. So on the area which I gave a white dry brush to. Because that way it will look as if light was coming off from inside and affecting the area around it, including this little guy and this shoe. And that way we have our second special effect focal point. And adding some depth to the inside here, applying it generously at this point. Now I'm looking at it from the distance, but here's a close-up for you guys. So yeah, essentially this will be close to finished. but some fine tweaking to do. So maybe quick highlight here. Just light touch on the knee part and on the clothes, just to make them a little bit brighter. To make it look as if there was some kind of glow coming from it. And I will just mix white with this pink and work on those bubbles a little bit more. I just want to make sure that all those bubbles are visible. And I will then maybe add a bit of purple just to make it look a bit more diversified. Okay. Now it's becoming my favorite Zoraida model. I didn't expect it when I started. I thought that the original metal version of Zoraida will remain my favorite, but this one is growing on me. Which often happens, I have to admit, when I paint miniatures, that I become more appreciative of the quality and the design as I continue my work on the model. All right, final 15 minutes. Will we make it? Yes, we will. So things are right on track. Our moth lady is just chilling, and I will add a bit more variety. I will introduce a little bit more of variety into inside of the nasty thing that she's boiling. I think I will just use some different type of intensity ink. Purple one, dark purple, this one. Of course, you're more than welcome to to observe my Instagram profile. I try to publish things regularly there. 90% of it is Malifaux because I'm a fanboy and I just love the miniature design and the game. But there is also some other stuff every now and then. I think it's good every now and then to just dive into something slightly different. Yeah, that's almost done. One more thing I will do before I call it ready will be to add some swamp water, some murky swamp water. So what I will do is I will just grab a small base, which I will use as my mixing pot. Let me get it. I need a 30mm one. This will do. That's the way I mix colors, because those are the, I have an abundance of unused bases, and that's a good way of finding use for them. So what I'll do, I will just get some water texture on it. You need to be very slow in pouring it out, because otherwise you will create bubbles, and those bubbles will settle in and look messy when they dry. Now I can add some colors to it. I will add this lovely color called Vomit. I will add it to one side. On another side, I will add maybe Warp Lightning, because it's dark. And I will also add maybe some light brown in a second. So for now, maybe bright green ink density. So 3 shades of green, completely different shades of green. And what I'll do now is I will just mix it with the water texture and apply it, just to imitate that the tree trunk she's walking on, running on, I should say, is located clearly in the bayou. That it's filthy around it. Just adding the medium color now, mixed with water texture. Now I will mix some of this darker green and try to keep it more in the recessed areas. That way it gives this different shade of green. Once it dries, due to the fact that I mixed water texture with regular paints, it will become matte. So what I will do after it dries, this is something I will do tomorrow, I will put one more thin layer of water effect on top of it. And now the bright one, just to make sure that it's visible. Don't want to overdo it, just a little bit closer to the edges on top, maybe also here, just to introduce a bit more of variety. And I can actually even add, I like to add a bit of mid brown, which is this slightly reddish shade of brown. That will even introduce even more variety. We are almost done here. One more thing I will do, because I want to bring out the pink a little bit more. So I will add one more quick dry brush of white in here. And it will generally what it will do is it will kind of just touch the raised areas. I will also try to push some into the recessed areas, and once again make an attempt to produce some object source lighting here, done in a quick and easy way. But I just want this point to become more vibrant, like the white, like the yellow point here. Just adding some very light touches of white as well. Now it looks all muddled up, but the reintroduction of pink will fix it. So there is the pink. Oopsie. There's the can on the floor, but that's fine. No damage done. The cat is still awake, although maybe slightly annoyed with me making unnecessary noises. The lizard will get also some purple from the inside. I mean, some pink. And I will just remove the excess to make sure that the tips stay pure white. And then it will be almost done. I mean, there's always that temptation to do one more thing, two more things, but I guess at some point, if it's not a miniature that you're painting for a competition, you just have to say, I'm done. I'm happy with it. It is ready to hit the table. All right. I think I will call it ready. So what we have here is Zoraida 2 with some heavy focal points, some light going on coming from her staff, some blue on the moths on her back, 3 darkened voodoo dolls, and some nasty pinkish purplish stuff that she's boiling, and a scenic base. So there it is, Zoraida. Now for the next stream tomorrow, make sure to check in. Doug will be painting something very Christmassy, something nice, something nasty, something funny as always. Make sure to drop in and say hi. And then I will have one more stream this week, which is due to the fact that Word is closing before Christmas. So I will be painting on Thursday, same time, and I will be painting this lovely lady. So that's happening on the next stream. But for now, it's a good night from Zoraida. Take care, everyone. Thank you. Bye.